Welcome to Flipping Miami, a podcast for those who want to learn real estate investing, do more, and make more. Now, here is your host, Raul Bolufe.
All right. What's up, guys? Welcome to Flipping Miami by Raul Bolufe. I am your host, Raul Bolufe. And on the other side of the screen today, I have a sales ninja, I think. that's kind of like the word. That's the words that come to mind. A sales ninja. Awesome dude. I've been to a few of his events and following his stuff for a while. John Martinez, probably like the most straightforward guy when it comes to selling authentically, ethically, and really targets how to do it in the wholesale business. So anyways, John, I appreciate you for coming on, dude.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, man. I've been looking forward to it.
Yeah. So John, he's got a bunch of things. We'll go into that a little bit. So we'll kind of like start from the top, and because at least me personally, it's more of like a selfish type of question, but me personally, I kind of like know like the sales stuff and your business, what it looks like now a little bit.
Yeah.
But tell us, like, who was John Martinez in high school? Like, even before the ninjury came out, who was John Martinez in high school?
High school John Martinez. So, high school, I did a lot of, like everyone else, right? You kind of go through a journey in high school. You enter it one way, you leave it a different way. But if we're just going to be completely real, I'll just take you through it. So freshman year, I was kind of a nerdy kid. Got pretty good grades, didn't talk to anyone though. I tried to play football. I didn't play very well. I was, I think I weighed in at just about 100 pounds, and I was playing on, high school football team with 200 and 300 pound guys. So, got kind of picked on, stayed on the sidelines, but that was my freshman year. Didn't have a lot of friends, going into high school. Okay. But kind of kept to myself, did my own thing, made some decent grades. Going into the sophomore year, hung out with the wrong crowd. I think it was the first weekend of my sophomore year. I went to my first party. Kind of got my friends that were going to stay with me through high school. I could tell you, it was the wrong group of guys.
Gotcha. Were you shy? Were you shy?
Yeah, absolutely, man. I didn't talk to a soul. I'm still that way today. Yeah. I could do a podcast, right? And I do these events, but, man, it's tough. Like, I do these high-end masterminds, right, where you pay just a ton of freaking money to be in the room with awesome people and kind of learn from them and kind of share your business experiences and that kind of stuff. Yeah. And I go into those knowing, hey, this is a really big investment, so I got to get the most out of it. But I tell you, I'm still so shy today that I'll go to those events, and sometimes I spend 2 or 3 days in my hotel room. I don't even attend because I just get so nervous about being in groups of people and talking to people. Yeah, absolutely.
Wow. And then so and like leaving. All right. So I want to touch on that. That's so interesting. But so like let's say let's fast forward a little bit. Like you're leaving high school. Like what's happening in John Martinez's life, right? Like you're a shy kid. You're hanging out with the wrong crowd. Like what's happening then?
Yeah. So I don't think I've told anybody about this actually, but I've always kept it to myself. I don't think I've shared this with anybody. But the day after high school, I didn't know what I was going to do with my life, right? I barely made it through. Really? I got my act back together my senior year, but I barely slid through and graduated. Not because I was stupid, just because high school didn't interest me. I didn't go to the classes. I slept through most of them and that type of thing. But my dad served in the Marine Corps in Vietnam. So when I graduated, I just figured, hey, I guess I'll just become a Marine. So I actually went to the recruiter just before I had graduated. I was 17 years old when I graduated, so I had to get parental permission. My dad hated the Marine Corps, or didn't hate the Marine Corps. Let me take that back. He loved the Marine Corps, but he was in Vietnam, and he had a lot of friends who died, and it was rough. So he didn't want to see that for his kid. So there's no way he was going to sign off on me going to the military. So, and I haven't told this to anyone, but you'll be the first, man. So I forged my dad's signature to get in. And the day after graduation, I hopped on, I got a lift up to Kansas City, Missouri, close to where I'm at, hopped on a plane, by that evening, I was in San Diego, hopping off the plane at the Marine Corps Recruit Depot. And that's where I was the day after graduation.
Oh my God. So you went from, all right, I don't know, day of graduation, I don't know what I'm going to do. The next day, I'm in San Diego. I figured it out.
Yeah. Well, I kind of had a few weeks going into graduation. I knew, and that's why I went to see the recruiter, and I kind of fudged the paperwork, which ended up being not such a good thlike but that's what happened.
Yeah. Wow. That's interesting. I wouldn't have expected that at all. That's so cool. I like asked that question kind of selfishly, but also for a couple of reasons. I think some people get lost in like, oh, John Martinez, he's great at sales. He's got a successful business, etc. But it's like, dude, you're a high school kid, just like everyone. We were all just high school kids, Yeah. And it's not like people who become wealthy. They're not like successful in high school and then successful in life. Sometimes they have rough beginnings. Sometimes they hang out with the wrong crowd. Sometimes they, sometimes they forge some signatures. It doesn't matter. But, so that's really cool that you shared that, and I appreciate that.
Yeah.
What happened, like, once you got to the military? Did that like shoot you straight? Was it like a shock?
It was. Well, I'll tell you. So it didn't turn out the way I thought it would. My vision was like, I remember I was a runt in high school. So when I graduated, I was finally up to like 130 pounds. So my vision of the military was like, I'm just going to become like a big, bad Jack Marine, right? Here's the reality of it. I went in. I wasn't supposed to go in because I've had some medical issues since childhood that prevented me from being eligible for any military service. Found out about that, found out about the forged signatures, found out about everything. Some run-ins with the law I had, just minor stuff in high school. So they actually sent me packing about a month and a half into boot camp. About halfway done, I thought I was going to get through this thing. End up getting shipped home on a Greyhound bus. So now I end up at home. I spent my birthday in there, so I'm 18 years old now, and I feel like a complete failure, right? I'm like, well, I didn't know what I was going to do. Like, who can't make it in the military? Like, got my butt kicked out of there. So I didn't know what I was going to do. So I actually, I started delivering food for a catering company. Did that, for about 6 months. And I guess this was kind of my transition into sales. I was just lost, man. But I delivered food for pharmaceutical sales reps into doctors' offices. They'd order food for the doctors, and I got to fly here, sorry. Yeah. And when the doctors came out to grab, lunch or whatever it was, the salespeople would be, hey, they'd tell, hey, here's my drug. Here's why I think you should, prescribe it. And they sold. And these people were, they were well off, in my view. They had 6-figure careers. They were well-dressed. They had like all the perks, the company cars. And so I was like, that's what I want to become. So that right there was my very first peek into sales, and that very first spark in me that said, man, I'm going to try the sales thing.
Wow, that's so interesting. Pharmaceutical. And it was from delivery. So it wasn't, you were like almost kind of just like looking for that.
Right. I just saw it and I said, that's what I want to be.
What's like going on in your mind at that point, right? Like you just, you get sent on a Greyhound back. You're like thinking like, man, I couldn't even make it in the army, in the army, the military, whatever. I couldn't even make it there. I'm back living at home, and I'm delivering food. Not that that's bad, but I can imagine in your mind, you're like hitting almost.
I had a different vision, right?
Yeah. You're 18 years old. Like, what, like, because then I imagine the next step is you started working in sales and stuff. Like, what triggered you? Was there a specific like point in time that triggered you like, okay, I need to change now? Or was it almost like a buildup of events? It was
a definite buildup. From my early childhood on, as early as I remember, I was small. I had a really severe speech problem. So like for most of my life, up until about, I think it was 7th grade, nobody understood me. My speech was so bad that it was only my mom who could really understand what I was saying. So if you just kind of, add that all up, like really small, got picked on, no good at sports, speech problem. So I kept to myself. I was a loner at that point because it was embarrassing to try to talk to people. Obviously in high school and stuff, you get made fun of, and that's just, it's normal, right? So it was that buildup of over the years of I'm going to show them, I'm going to be something, I'm going to freaking do something with my life. Even though I didn't know what it was at the time,
Right.
there was this chip on my shoulder. I think that chip's still here today, but that was it. It was definitely a buildup, man.
That's awesome. Yeah. So I love those. I think people who like to study success, they love hearing these stories because all the stories are different, but there's so many commonalities, right? There's like build up, there's some kind of chip. Some chips are bigger than others, right? Yeah. But I think that's amazing that you're able to kind of like overcome that. I mean, at 18 years old, you still have the whole world ahead of you, but at that moment, it doesn't seem like that.
Right.
It's pretty crazy. What was the next step you did? So you got that introduction to sales. Did you try like applying for sales jobs after that or what?
Yeah. I put out a resume. I went to an interview for an insurance company. These, I didn't know at the time, but the way a lot of these companies operate, at least the one that I work for and a lot similar to it, was they just hired everybody. If you had a pulse, they were going to hire you, and there was almost zero training. They're just like, here's our stuff, go sell it. And we're going to hire 100 people, and 2 of them are going to make it. But, every month they're going to hire 100 more. That's how they built their sales force. So there's just tremendous failure. I was too naive to know that, though, because I'd never been in that environment. So I thought that because they hired me, and I remember going home, I was living with my mom again. And I remember going home and telling her, like, Mom, this company sees something in me that nobody else sees. Like, I have no experience, but they hired me. They must have done it for a reason. They must have seen something in me, and I'm going to prove them right. So a lot of it was my, just that naiveness that was within me that didn't know, hey, they hire anybody. But the funny thing is it was that gave me the confidence to push forward, because I figured these people are professional business people, and they have identified something in me. So that must mean by default, I can do this job.
That's funny. So you felt kind of like that, almost like a pressure, like, I don't know, these people believe in me, so I got to perform.
Yeah. And I felt like I could, because otherwise, why would they have hired me?
Yeah. That reminds me of like that quote that Steve Jobs says, like, stay foolish, stay dumb, or whatever, however it goes, something like that.
I heard so. Yeah, absolutely.
It's almost like being naive can be a good thing if you just still have the kind of like the determination to figure it out.
Right.
I remember when I was getting started, I was 20 years old. I was so naive. I was stupid. I'm like, I think I was selling cars. I'm like, selling cars, selling a $10,000 car, I can make a commission. But selling $100,000 house, I think I can make a bigger commission. That was literally the only thought in my mind. So I'm like, well, maybe I should start selling the houses. And
I think one of the biggest things that stop people from being in sales and anywhere, stop people from becoming successful, and something that I constantly struggle with, is keeping yourself from learning that you can't do something, right? Because you could try something so many times, and your mind is going to say, hey, we've tried this 20 times. This means that you can't do it. And one of the biggest struggles I have, and I think that hold people back from becoming successful, or at least reaching the levels they want to, is they do what the brain wants them to do, and they learn it, right? You experience something so many times, you draw a conclusion. And I think that naivete that we were talking about is something that later on has to be forced. You have to say, yes, even though I know I failed 50 freaking times at doing this, I know I can do it. And you kind of have to turn that learning off and stay stupid almost, right? Yeah. Say the average person would have said, learn my lesson, can't do this, let's move on. But I'm going to be stupid and keep going.
Yeah. I remember, and I'll say this and then we'll digress. I remember when I used to play baseball, the people who would think so much about like their last at bat would typically fall down like a negative downward spiral. But if there was like usually the best players on the team were like the cockiest, right? And even if they struck out, they'll be like, I'm still the best. Like, it doesn't matter. That guy doesn't know how to pitch, whatever. But that's the same guy that would still do best, a long time, because in their mind, they're like, yeah, I struck out, but that doesn't like mean that is who I am. Someone who strikes out, I'll just do it again, right? I'll keep the right steps. So that kind of reminded me of that story. So now you fast forward, you're probably did a bunch of sales.
Yes.
And you started. Did you start in the insurance company, by the way? And
Started in the insurance business. I just grinded it out for about 6 months, learning the business, ended up getting offered an agency of my own, built that agency over the next 6 months to, I think, 50 to 70 agents. And I went from delivering food to about 12 months later, I remember I was making like $5,000 a week in my commissions from the agents under me. So it was like, it seemed really slow at the time because, I mean, when I was on the road, I was sleeping in my car and I sucked at sales. And so it was rough. So it seemed like a long time. But looking back, a year from $8 an hour to 250,000 a year, it was quick. So that was my entry into sales, and I never looked back.
Wow. And so what would you tell somebody that is almost in that position that you were at? Maybe not the whole military thing, but like in a similar thing, that they're kind of like maybe in their under 20 or maybe in their low 20s, and they're kind of like, or maybe it doesn't even matter the age, but they're kind of in that position that, man, I feel like I failed. Where do I go now? Like, what would you tell that person?
Yeah. So, and this is just, I didn't know this at the time, but looking back, I think I've got a pretty clear answer, and it's just keep pushing forward. And don't try to, it's when planning, it's important to have a destination, but not an exact plan how to get there. Because I've seen a lot of success now and over the years working for corporate America and different roles I've had. And what I've realized is you just stay focused on the goal. And what you're going to find is on your way there, you're going to have to pivot, change tactics, change strategies, sometimes change business models or careers, but you keep the goal in mind, right? So if you are in that position, you say, hey, I haven't found success yet. Just keep the goal in mind of where you want to go. Try to think of the best way to get there. Go for it. If it doesn't work, try something else. Just know that if you keep the goal in mind, you could get there. You're going to pivot and change 1,000 times along the way, but that's natural. Every time you pivot, it's not a failure. It's okay. I learned a little bit. We're adjusting course. We're still going the same place, right?
Right. Yeah. That's key, man. That's key because when people get like hung up on their past failures, it's almost like you limit what you can do now.
Yeah.
I read the book. This is kind of has something to do with it, maybe a little bit deeper. And then there's a book called The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle.
Okay.
And it talks about how in the present moment, there is infinite amount of opportunities. But if you bring the past in with you, you now there's finite amount of opportunities because you have so many limitations.
Right.
It's obviously like a deeper introspective way, but what I'm getting at is like, if you're in that past, if you're on your journey, everyone goes through hard times. And if you want to like start that business or you want to start, do your first deal, but you failed 3 months in a row, 8 months in a row, it's like, take those as a learning experience, but it doesn't mean you should change your behavior now. It should just influence you.
Yeah. I mean, it's so cliche nowadays about failing and failing forward, but it's that way because it's so freaking true. There is no success out there in the world anywhere, bar none, that's not built on this huge foundation of past failures. It's just the way it is. It's reality. So some people let those failures stop them, and some people learn from them. And that truly is the difference between successful people and unsuccessful people. Is some people experience failure and it stops them. Other people experience failure and they say, what can I learn from that and how do I apply that going forward? Those are the people who get to that, whatever that destination is. The people who let those failures set them back and say, I can't do it. Those are the people that the only way they can find happiness is by changing their whole mindset and say, that goal I wanted, I don't want it anymore. I'm just not meant to live that way. I'm not meant to have that life. I'm not meant to experience those things or provide those things for my family. And they settle, right? That's the only option is you keep that goal, or if you let failure get you, you learn to settle. And I don't think learning to settle is any way to live a life. That's
not fun. Yeah. And John, so how did you get good at sales, right? Like you're kind of like introverted, you're shy. Yeah. You came from that, you had a speech issue growing up. And I'm sure you've only read like a book or two, right? But I guess like, how did you start getting good? I feel like, man, right. It feels like all over you there. Because people, I mean, even me, right? Anybody that's like trying to push and do good in wholesale or try to do good in investing or in their career, they want to get better at sales.
Right.
And how'd you do it?
The same thing you learn anything, man. You learn from wherever you can, whether it's videos on YouTube nowadays. Back in the day when I was learning, it was books. Okay. I paid money and did a series of trainings through the companies I was with, and then on my own. And so there's kind of, I guess, a couple different phases. There's the knowledge piece, like I got to know what you're supposed to do. So that comes in videos, books, trainers, whatever. Right. And then there's the implementation piece where it's okay. Now I've got this general base layer of knowledge. I'm going to go implement, and that's when more learning takes place because you try something. It's either going to work or not work. If it doesn't work, you're like, okay, I'm not going to do so much of that. If it does work, you go, hey, I'm going to do more of that in my sales calls and conversations. So I think you get this base layer knowledge, and then you just implement. Now you can skip the trainers and the books and the videos and just go try it over and over, and you can still learn the same lessons. It's just, it takes a lot longer, right? It's always easier. You get a head start if you can learn from people who've already done something. Yeah. Regardless, I've trained people who've been in sales for 30 years, never had any formal training, and they crush it. And we both end up with the same conclusions on how to sell, because you're going to learn one way or the other. If you do it enough, you're going to learn. But I recommend, hey, read a book, see a video, do whatever, get a trainer. And then implement. You pair those two things up. That's the quickest route to learning.
Yeah, quickest route. I guess, like, how long would you say it took you to kind of like be comfortable in your own skin, selling at almost at any moment, at any company, at any time?
For me, it took about 10 years. And I'll tell you, I'll kind of give you just the brief story. So I sold my whole life, and I had a lot of training, and I did a little bit of it, but I'll tell you, I never fully embraced the sales training I had. I did bits and things. I found success, but I never bought into it 100%. And it took me, we talked about failing. It took me, I was about 30 years old, working for a large IT company. I was director of sales and marketing. And I started to experience failure. And I got to a point where I was going to quit sales, my sales career altogether. I remember talking to people around me saying, I'm done with sales. It's too stressful. It's too hard. I'm out. And one of the people I talked to was one of the sales trainers I had early in my career. His name was Brett. And I said, Brett, listen, dude, I appreciate all the training you've given me over the years, but I'm just, I feel like you're the only person who's going to understand because you've seen a lot of salespeople. You've trained a lot of salespeople. I'm out. And he said, John, do this for me. He said, let me train you again. He said, come to the group coaching sessions I have, stay for a month, go into it knowing that, hey, you're leaving sales and you're 99% sure you're never going to sell again. Just go into it with that open mind. Do exactly what I tell you. The worst thing that can happen is you still quit sales, right? So just abandon everything do what I tell you. And, after a month, if you still want to quit, just quit. And I said, all right, fine, Brett. And I went, and that was, it was kind of like hitting rock bottom, right? I hit rock bottom. I said, fine, I'll just do whatever you say. It's going to be stupid. It's going to be embarrassing, but I'll do it. And I did it. And my sales started increasing very, very rapidly. So it took that 10 years, getting all the way to rock bottom, not knowing why I wasn't selling anymore, until I finally kind of gave up and said, all right, I'll embrace, all these things I've learned in sales, no ego, no nothing coming. I'm just going to do what I know I'm supposed to do. And that is when I finally embraced everything I had learned and saw a whole new level of success.